Here we will be creating this halftone shader, and to practice a bit with nodes. For this shader we will have these controls. This one to change the size of the texture. We have a contrast that changes the contrast between light and shadow. Color for light and shadow. And we can rotate the texture. And also what most shaders that I saw before did or behave like was that when you get far from it, well, the distance from it doesn't affect the texture. It's always the same size, even if you are far away. So that's fine if you are going to make a still image, but if you're going to make an animation, I don't know, you may want the texture to scale with distance. So you can switch that here, and now if you get close to the object, you see the dots are bigger, and as you get far away they get smaller. We will also be making this outline, and okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I will start with a sphere, Ctrl 3 to add a subdivision, and shade smooth. I will go to shading, and probably the first thing we can do, well, we will be working with Eevee. So we add a new material. This will be our halftone, and we add another material for the outline. We won't use a shader because we don't want a shadow on that outline. And these material settings, we activate the backface culling. We add a solidify modifier, set this to 1, change the thickness, invert the normals, and change the material offset to 1. That way it will use the second slot. And with the inverted normals, what we do is we invert the normals, and since we have a backspace culling, or I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but we can only see the inside of the shader and not the front. That's why we see it like this. If we change this, okay, so that's for the outline. You can change the color here if you want. We will leave it like this for now, and you can change the thickness by changing this. I can show you quickly how to, for example, if you want, you can go to Object, Custom Properties, Add, edit this, change it to thickness or whatever. We will make it, I don't know, 0 to 1 for now. Okay, right click, copy as new driver, and paste here, paste driver. Now you can control properties. You can change it here, and also you can edit here, edit. This is the new one. Edit this one, change it to color, and here property 1.0. Then when you click outside, you can change here to linear color. Okay, this is a little bit more complicated, but it's to be able to drive the color with this, you will have to go to RGB and do it for each of the channels. Copy as new driver the red, paste it here, green to green, and blue to blue. There we go. Now you can change here, and it will, you have the controls here. Since we have two materials, it's more practical. Okay, now to the slot 1. Remove this, and we will start by making the texture that we will use for the halftone. We will use the view vector. And boronate texture. If we set this to, we'll use the distance, and let's change the size first so you can see, and we change the randomness to 0, so we get this. And now if we, you have a, you could use a range map, a color ramp, or greater than. In this case, we will use, this will be easier to control, and I will change this to 2D also. So now we can control the size of our dots with this slider. And we have to find a way to make the dots bigger when there's more shadow and smaller when there's more light. So for that we will use first a diffuse to catch the shadow, the light. Let me first use scene lights. It's better if we go directly here, and let's make that light. We have to one more thing to the outline. here what we see is the shadow of the outline that it's on top of the material that we're working. You go here and you change the shadow mode to none, and that's it. Go back to the slot 1. And now, okay, so we have the information of the light here. We will use shader to RGB node. This will take this information and transform it into actual color that we can manipulate and change, has a value, and we use this value to change the size of those dots. So if we plug this here, you will see that we already have something going on. Now we can use, you could invert this, but it makes no sense to me because we are going to use a mix RGB node and 2 colors, so you can choose whatever you want. We use this as a factor, and we can change now. This will be our light color and our shadow color, like this. So the size of the texture, we can control it with this. We'll add a value node just to remind me of that. We could also use a math node here and multiply this value to change the contrast. So and now, as I told you before, these dots are not affected by the distance of the viewer, and I would like to have the option at least to change that. You could use whatever you like. If you want to keep it like this, you can just switch a slider and change it. So to do that, we will add here a mix RGB, and we will have the normal scale on one of the colors, and on the other we will create something different, and we plug this to scale. So when this is at factor 0, it's taking this value, and when at the moment we have nothing here, but when we change this to 1, we have this value, so we will have like a switch. And to change this, we will connect this to when we create the node group to change that. So now what we need is, at first, when I started this, I used this view distance. I will show you what happens to multiply this value. So we have this, and we multiply it by the distance. and plug it here, and we change this. Okay, first it's too big, so too small, so we have to adjust that. Okay, so as you can see, if you, I will remove the 3D cursor. As you can see, it works, but not on all shapes. If you have like very in some angles, I will also decrease this and bring the light a bit. As you can see, the dots on the border are being stretched, and it's more noticeable in other shapes like a square, for example, a cube, sorry. There, as you can see now. What's going on here is that this view distance calculates the distance between the viewpoint, the camera, and the shading point. So this distance is not the same as this one. So what we really need is the distance between the camera and the origin point of the object. And to do that, we will first calculate, thanks to Erindale that helped me with this part. I will leave this cube around to show you how this gets fixed. So what we need here is to, instead of multiplying this here, we will first we will need this geometry and camera. We have to calculate the location of the camera. And the location of the object. And then we calculate, with those two values, we can calculate the distance between them. And now if we plug this here, you will see that the dots respect the distance, and also you don't get that stretching because the distance now it's the same for all points of the object. Okay, so now we take everything but this, Ctrl G, then you can duplicate this. First I will change this because it's not a color. First value, it's our contrast. You can then limit these numbers as you want. We also have the second, it's the texture size or the dot size. We can change this back to 1, or maybe even remove it for now. We will play also the colors here. This is the light or the color, just the color. And this one will be the shadow color. Then we have the factor that changes the if it reacts to the distance or not, or it's fixed, the size. So call it whatever you want. And we will test this. We will probably have to adjust a bit the size for the texture when it's not using this. Let me check. So if we switch back, yes, it's too big, so we have to multiply this, just this part, to something similar to the other. This is just user-friendly stuff. So when we switch, it's not like a super different size. That's fine. This one gets smaller when we get far away, and this one remains always the same size. Okay, now we can change the color. We have here also the outline. If you want to do the same to the other object, you can do the same process. And am I missing something? Contrast works fine. And I think that's all. I almost forgot the rotation, so I will add this little part here. All we have to do is, this is our texture, so, and this is our vector, so we have to rotate that vector. Vector rotate, we plugged it here, and then we control the rotation with this. We plug it here. We'll change the name as you want, and here you can set the angle whatever you want. And that's it. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.